Welcome everyone to the Longmont Senior Center Tech Connect. Today we're going to be talking about what's this cloud thing? What's it all about? Is it a good thing? And what will it do for me? First of all, part one, what's a cloud? Let's take a look at you sitting at your computer. When you save a file or a document or whatever, it's written to your hard drive of your computer. When you have a cloud service enabled, a special program that's connected to that cloud service copies the file to the cloud. When you make changes to the file, those changes are also reflected in the copy that's in the cloud. So now that file is available anywhere. No matter where you go, you can get a copy of it on your device. Of course, as long as you have internet access and as long as you have that cloud service enabled on your device. For example, on your phone, you need to be logged in with your Apple ID. And the reverse is true. If I create a file while I'm away, let's say with my iPhone, that file becomes available in the cloud. And of course, the most common example of that is taking a photo. And that photo is not only stored on my device, but it's also stored in the cloud. So when I get home, that file is available on my desktop device or whatever device I have at home. So is that a good thing? Well, the most often situation, which we just looked at, is that you take a photo with your phone and then it becomes available to your other devices. But very importantly, it's also backed up in case your device dies. Plus, it's available for sharing. If files aren't just limited to you sharing on your devices, you can share information with other people. So, yes, it's a good thing. So, to sum up what is this cloud? The cloud's like having a magical disk drive somewhere up in the sky, and it keeps things synchronized across all your devices. So what are those things? Well, here we're using Mac OS for an example, but we're pointing out the things that you can synchronize on the cloud. It does depend on the cloud service, and we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. But generally it's photos, music, calendars, that kind of thing, documents, also passwords, which is very important, and lots of other stuff. You can see here things like notes and reminders and my Safari bookmarks and my wallet, which has my credit card in it. You don't have to do that. Also, browsers use the cloud to store all kinds of settings. So let's look at that. And there'll be a test here in a minute, so memorize this. Just kidding. This is really more for reference. So Chrome syncs through your Google account. Safari syncs through your iCloud account, which is your Apple ID. Edge syncs through your Microsoft account, like if you have an Office 365 subscription. And Firefox syncs through a Firefox account that you can create if you use Firefox. And under each of these, we've listed the things that browsers synchronize across your devices. Here's an example of sharing photos. So sharing is an important part of a cloud service. In this particular case, you can see this is off of my iPhone. In my albums, I select shared albums. Once I open that up, I select my family photos album. And you can see right at the top there's a little icon for sharing. And you can see I've shared it with all of these people. So anytime I put a photo in that album, or any of these people who are allowed to put photos in that album, everyone gets to see them. It's a great way to share photos. Another good example is sharing calendars. This is an example of part of my calendar. Other people, you can set it up so other people can just view your calendar, or they can actually add things to your calendar and make changes, as my wife and I do. You can see here we have a calendar called Trip Planning. And the Trip Planning calendar is shared with lots of people. So if my wife and I are planning a trip, all these people can see and they get notified when we add an event to that calendar. So let's look at part 2, cloud services. The major cloud services include Apple's iCloud, which I'm partial to, of course, Google Drive, Microsoft's OneDrive, and Dropbox. There are a lot of other, let's say, minor cloud service companies. So Apple's iCloud, as you might expect, is best for your Mac and iPhone users. It's okay for PC and iPhone users. You can, especially for synchronizing photos and calendars and contacts. Google Drive is best for Google accounts, especially with Android and PC combination. Microsoft OneDrive is best for Office 365 users because it automatically manages documents across your devices if you're using the Office 365 applications like Word, Excel, and so on. And then there's Dropbox. Dropbox is more of a general purpose cloud service. It works with third-party apps, third parties being Apple, Microsoft, or things like LibreOffice, for example. I use Dropbox a lot because for me it's free and I can share it across all of my devices. So do I need to pick one or two, or what's the deal with that? You can mix and match cloud services. It's best to use a specific cloud service for a specific set of apps. For example, you can see here Google for Google Docs, that makes sense, Google Photos, and for synchronizing your Chrome settings across your account. Microsoft OneDrive is best for Microsoft Documents and things like Outlook, which is where your contacts and email are synchronized. And obviously iCloud for all things Apple, iPad, iPhone, and Macs. But you need to try not to mix cloud services for the same thing. And the classic example is mixing iCloud Photos and Google Photos. That just gets confusing. And you end up with duplicate photos all over the place, and you have to go to different places for your photos. So just pick one or the other. And both of those will work, for example, on an iPhone. Another question we get all the time is, cloud service good for backup? Well, yes, it's a very good way to protect your files. But technically, it's not a backup. If I delete something on a device, it will be deleted everywhere. Backup service won't do that. A backup service lets you restore files from a certain date and time. Apple's Time Machine, for example. I can go back in time and restore files either that I deleted or that I changed and I want to go back to a previous revision of that. So ideally you should have both. You should have a backup and use the cloud service for sharing amongst your devices. And finally, let's look at syncing other documents. As we've gone over, some apps have their own synchronization, like browsers, for example, contacts, calendars, passwords, and all that sort of thing. But sometimes you just want to share plain old files, plain old documents. They can be Microsoft documents or LibreOffice or PDFs or whatever, but you just want to share those amongst your devices or with other people. All the different cloud services offer a way to transparently synchronize your files. The key to that is all you have to do is put your files in the right place. And these are the special folders for the different cloud services. iCloud is a little bit different in that it synchronizes two different folders, your Documents folder and your Desktop folder. Google has a special folder called My Drive, as does Microsoft and Dropbox. Microsoft's a little bit unique in that you can actually designate other folders as shareable using OneDrive. You can always get to these files via a browser. And you can see here we have different URLs for the different cloud services. And many of you probably have gotten the notice, hey, you've run out of space in the cloud. And this happens a lot, for example, with the iPhone. You get 5 gigabytes of storage in the cloud for free as part of when you get, for example, your iPhone or your Mac. When you sign up for iCloud, 5 gigabytes is quite a bit, but we also all take a lot of photos and videos. And once you start bumping the limit on that 5 gigabytes, things will no longer be stored in the cloud, and you'll get a warning. So they ask you to pay extra. Typically, for Apple, it's 99 cents. Just send in your 99 cents a month, and you'll get 10 times the space, which is usually enough for most people. You can see here the other cloud service providers all have similar plans. OneDrive from Microsoft's a little bit different. If you're signed up to Office 365, you automatically receive a terabyte of OneDrive storage in the cloud as part of that plan. But you can also buy additional storage if you need it. So we were talking about magical disk drive in the sky. This is a photo of the magical disk drive in the sky. It's really your files are stored in really huge data centers that are distributed around the world. For example, all of Apple's data centers right now are a minimum of 500,000 square feet and consume around 10 megawatts of power. 10 megawatts is about enough electricity for half a Longmont, to give you an idea. So they take a lot of power. So if you look closely, you can see your file is stored right there. But it's probably replicated down the way just a little bit, and it's probably replicated somewhere else in the world. So a few caveats and concerns. First of all, cloud storage is not the same as backup. It does protect your files, and it's important to protect your files, as you all have probably seen at some point or another, especially if you've dropped your iPhone in the bathtub or whatever. However, if you delete a file from one device, it will be deleted everywhere. So that's different than a backup. However, using iCloud, you can back up your iPhone and your iPad to iCloud storage. Similarly, with Android phone, you can back up to Google Drive. And when we say back up, we mean really make a backup. So that, for example, if you're getting a new phone, the first thing you do with the old phone is you back it up. Then you get your new phone and you restore the backup, and your phone is right back the way it was, but you just have a new phone. The other main concern is with the password of your cloud service account. It's very important to protect that password, because if someone gets that, they have everything on your cloud that's stored in the cloud for you. The other thing is if you lose that password, the recovery process is not pretty at all. It can take weeks, or you may never be able to get back to your cloud files. The other thing is to create a legacy contact. This is important, especially for us getting into our advanced years here. Someone that will have access to your files after you're gone. And in the case of Apple, for example, they actually have a website you can go to that will give you directions on how to designate a legacy contact and give that person authorization to access your files. Otherwise, those files will not be accessible. So, along those lines, is there a downside to using the cloud? Well, the first one, of course, is as you add photos and documents, which you are prone to do, you will end up having to pay for some storage. It's not a lot, but still, it's a monthly bill. In the case of Microsoft and Apple, for example, you have to be careful because you generally have to give them a credit card. And if you just willy-nilly go to the App Store and download an app, you may be charged for that app and not realize it. So be careful with that, because you can end up buying an app that you didn't intend to buy. And lastly, your files and photos and stuff may be used for tracking. We all get tracked online, whether we like it or not. This is no exception. I encourage you to go look at, say, Google Photos tracking if you're curious. Obviously, Google makes its money selling advertising, so they have no qualms about using your personal data to help sell you things. That may be a good thing, it may be a bad thing. And finally, is it secure? Yes, it's very secure. As long as you keep your password protected, everything is encrypted. The cloud service provider has no access to your data. It's encrypted in only a way that you can fetch it back. So it's definitely secure. So the final thoughts, clouds in general, a really good way to organize your digital life. It allows you to share things with other people as well as amongst your own devices. It keeps your files accessible and safe, which is important because if your computer dies, you want to be able to access those files. It also helps you manage your passwords. We didn't talk a lot about that, but your passwords are synchronized amongst your devices, and it helps you to not have to remember all your passwords all the time because they're stored in a place where they're easily auto-filled, and you can take them with you wherever. Some of these cloud service providers allow you to collaborate in real time on documents. In other words, I can have a Microsoft Word document open, and my daughter can have it open from LA, and we can see each other typing on that document. We can see each other's changes in real time. It's a great way to collaborate on developing different pieces of collateral or whatever. Now, if you do need more information, we haven't talked about enabling the cloud services on your device, but give us a holler if you do. It's obviously different for each cloud service provider, but in general, it's fairly simple. So here's some references on how to set up your different cloud service providers, and that's pretty much it.